I'll call this meeting to order. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Nikawak, Saulteaux, Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and the Ipitimiswak Métis nations. We honor the knowledge of this land, the elders and youth which gather here, and our ancestors who have gathered here for centuries. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the April 15th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted with the addition of I-1 Bill 50 response? Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
I'll move the agenda be adopted with the addition.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. We have no public hearings, but we have a delegation tonight from the Edson Seniors Transportation Society operating as Moving Edson. The annual update presented by Dawn Mitchell, Executive Director. Come on up, Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you so much for council for having us here tonight. I'm gonna have to say a big apology to my board because I realized when I saw Councillor Bevan earlier today, when he popped by, you do that thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell them we were presenting tonight. So I might be in a little bit of trouble. However, thank you so much for letting me present tonight. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, about us, about our 2024 events and highlights, the ridership comparison, which is always interesting year over year, the financial comparison, and our priorities for this year. As you all know, we have been proudly providing mobility accessible transportation for Edson residents since 1984, so over 40 years now. We serve Edson residents 55 plus and those 54 and under with cognitive and or mobility challenges. Last year, January, February, we submitted our 2023 year end, had that audited, and passed, of course, with flying colors, and the grant writing started. The board of directors reviewed the in-town ridership fees. In March and April, we had our 2024 AGM and adopted our budget. We presented to you fine folks in, I think it was April, beginning of April. We received a new Horizons grant for safety cameras and data analytics tracking equipment. That was pretty exciting. More grant writing happened. In May and June, the in-town ridership fees were adjusted as per the board's direction. We received a Canadian Red Cross grant for safety cameras and related technology equipment. You'll see that come up repeatedly because that was one of the things that we identified that we really needed to get better at on our buses for not only our clients, but the safety of our drivers. We received the Town of Edson Community Builder Business Award. We were very, very honored to receive this. We had our May the 4th Be With You Trivia Night, which many of you attended, and it was a ton of fun. We also launched our merchandise sales. So July and August, we provided wildfire support to the municipality of Jasper and the Evergreens Foundation. We were gifted temporary office space from the Town of Edson at the Kinsman Spray Park building because we just are so busy and we have so many clients coming and going. It was pretty hard for me, as I've been working from home, to come and try and meet with clients all over the place. And, so it was amazing. And to this day, it doesn't matter when you stop by, there's probably a client coming and going, like, we are busy. That said, the board of directors also landed on wraps and stickers that spoke to our rebranding. I think you saw it in one of the first two slides there. It's a really flashy wrap that you see going around town, and it's quite fun. September and October brought about our automated phone system, which really does help with a lot of our clients knowing who to call, how to get through all the things. The NET program policies and procedures took a great deal of time to write, and the board of directors approved those at that time. More grant writing happened. In November and December, the government of Alberta provided us with a SIP grant in agreement with the Canadian Red Cross for the purchase of a mobility accessible vehicle. We also launched our NET transportation. That's our non-emergent medical transportation for Edson residents. It's an amazing program. It's crazy busy, which tells you that when you see a gap and when you see a gap in services for clients and you go for it, and then you get so busy, it's like we really nailed it, right? This is really a service that is needed in Edson, well, I will say, and in the region. Rural Transit Solution Funds grant came through for us. They had put a grant out in 2023 for the purchase of an electric vehicle, electric mobility accessible vehicle, and a charging station. That said, just to keep you up to date, in conversations with them this year, the cost of an electric vehicle now and the charging station versus 2023, it's significantly higher. So the amount that we were awarded, they wouldn't allow us to, they wouldn't give us any more. And with a federal grant, you always have to pay 20%. So that really kicked up the cost that we would have to put in. And that said, I reapplied knowing that we were already successful, and they said it was fine to see if we could change that into a gas-powered vehicle, right, which would then bring the cost down. So still waiting on an answer for that, but I'm very, very hopeful. I thought I would just throw these in. These are, RAC cards that we have had made up. You'll see them all over town. They're in the FCSS building, all over town. You'll see them in the hospital, everywhere. It speaks to our in-town ridership program, and they're on the buses. This speaks to the eligibility, membership, and fee for service. This is a RAC card that speaks to, as well as a poster that you'll see around town, that speaks to our NET program, non-emergent out-of-town medical transportation, that I spoke of just a little bit earlier. The eligibility, the guidelines, the fee. It's important to note that eligibility for the NET program is 65 plus Edson residents, and we wanted to make sure that it wasn't only available to persons needing to go to Edmonton. It would be available to persons needing to see doctors and specialists in other small towns and regions or areas in our region. This next slide speaks to our in-town ridership stats comparison, 22 to 24. I really like that we're now being able to see a couple of years. So you'll see the number of Edson residents served is the first column, and there's a significant rise. It's amazing each year. It's so great to see. Ambulatory, again, that continues to increase. Non-ambulatory continues to increase slightly. It's great. Revenue and expense comparison. So this is a really interesting slide that it's kind of important to speak about, because you'll see that our revenue, it steadily goes up, right? We're doing really, really well. Then you get to the expenses side and you see that it's steadily, it's kind of in relation. So you'll see basically for most, or 2 of the years, 22 and 23, that our revenue is higher than our expenses, right? But then all of a sudden in 2024, you see an extreme high, a high jump in our expenses. So this is where, when you're working with a nonprofit, it's important to understand that it's such a different world, because your revenue, you can only charge a certain amount for a ride. There's a pain point, right? We so heavily subsidize transportation, right? So $4 a ride per one-way trip, but our expenses grow up. So the important part about the slide prior to that is that your ridership continually goes up, which is a great problem to have, right? It means that we're doing all the things right. We're getting out there, we're marketing, we are grabbing that many more people that need our services, right? However, with that comes the expense of you need to obviously have more staff. You have to pay more for fuel. You have to pay more for insurance. You have all these added costs, but you can't raise your revenue to reflect the difference, right? I can't. You can't do it. So you have to be creative, and that's where finding the different revenue streams comes in, right? So now also when you think about the fact that we're driving a 2014 and a 2016 bus, we can't charge what they charge for private charters and corporate charters with, the big beautiful coach buses. We can't charge that, right? So that's kind of tricky right in there. So it's always trying to find the different revenue streams, understanding that you have to take the whole picture into consideration, though that was painful to feel at the end of the year, right? It meant that we were doing a good job, but at the same time, you're like, oh my goodness sakes, right? It's not sustainable. So revenue, this one's interesting. Again, I'm quite happy to be able to give you a 4-year shot or a 3-year shot, sorry. So ridership, advertising, donations, fundraising, charters, you can see that with grants, it is extremely important that the bulk of my time is spent on grants. It just is. And again, it's challenging to find operational grants, a little bit easier to find capital grants, which is what we needed. However, it's all kind of relative, and you can see that ridership's kind of, it doesn't pay the bills, right? So our only hope is the charters, which is good. You'll notice that high spike in charters in 2023. Again, that goes to the wildfires, that unfortunate situation. I had to throw this in there. This is our amazing advertisers, our supporters. They're fantastic. Our 2025 priorities, again, to increase revenue. We're going to focus on growing revenue through targeted fundraising, grants, and strategic partnerships. Technology implementation, ongoing adoption of technology will enhance operational efficiency and rider experience. That's extremely important. Safety manual, a comprehensive safety manual will be developed to formalize safety protocols across all aspects of service. That has been top of my priority list for quite some time, and I was successful in a grant application that will, support that cost, because again, that is extreme. That's a safety manual, policies and procedures. They're quite costly, and that's challenging for a nonprofit. So you really, we were quite blessed with that one. I already spoke to the policies and procedures manual. Trauma-informed training for staff, that's actually happening on April 29th. I am so excited about this. So there's a Trauma-Informed Institute out of BC. The lady was a professor at the U of BC for a number of years and started her own company. So our drivers are extremely unique because each day, 8 hours a day, they deal with persons that have trauma of some sort, right? We also then expect them in emergency situations to carry persons who are experiencing trauma in the moment, right? And so it's really, really important. And they have trauma of their own, right? So it's really, really important to me that we provide that support. And I wanted it in conjunction with the safety manual and the policies and procedures, because you always have to think, if you're not there the next day, I want to make sure a lot of that information is written into the policies and procedures in the safety manual to support them if I'm not around. And it's just a fantastic learning opportunity. It helps them in their everyday work, in their everyday clients. Website improvements. I did not realize when we rebuilt the website that a lot of individuals, I didn't know that certain websites can cause induced seizures. That persons who have colors and how fast something moves across. I wanted it to be bilingual, and we have I know that you guys are very good at ensuring that the public understands that we don't do public transportation. We only serve vulnerable persons. That means that if clients are looking to book a ride or get to net transportation to their doctor's appointment or what have you. They might have sight, visual problems. They might need braille. They can't see. They can't hear. Right. So I received a grant to be able to just up our service that way and make sure that we really are thinking of all things. Right. Trivia night fundraiser. That's again a big one. As you know, we were scheduled for trivia night right away here in support of another community group that is trying to raise funds, and they can't move their event, right? We felt it was best to move ours to a later date. So we're super excited. That's going to happen October 4th. I hope you can all come. And I believe that is the end of our presentation. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Thank you for listening to me prattle on for probably more than 5 minutes. Sorry, I tried. I talked fast.
Thanks, Ms. Mitchell, for your presentation and all the work that Moving Edson does for our community. We will open the floor to questions from council. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to Ms. Mitchell, thank you so much for your presentation. You said it earlier, you're doing a good job. You are doing a good job. And you say it in your ridership, in the new buses, obviously, and even in the updating the website. What a fantastic idea to make it more accessible and inclusive. So thank you, and thank you for providing this service, because if you don't provide this service, somebody has to. And I've always said, if the town of Edson ever had to take this on, it would cost infinitely more. So we love that we do have a volunteer board and people like yourself that are willing to take this on. Just regarding the NET program, thus far, how many users have you had of that program thus far? I know you had a slide in there, and I didn't see the stat of it. So how many users so far of that have you had, roughly? Do you know?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Taylor. So I do actually know this. So that was a 2024 year in review. So we had just started in November, so November to December. So all you're seeing is that little sliver, right? I'm so happy to tell you that, thank you for the kind words, by the way. So from January to now, when I say that we're going twice a week to Edmonton, to Spruce Grove, to Hinton, to Yao, it's absolutely crazy. So we have, let me do the quick math, probably 45 clients. Yeah, and we just actually had someone come in yesterday to do their renewal, because they have to renew as of June 1st, because I need their updated notice of assessment. That's one of the requirements. And lots of them are repeat customers. The interesting part that I didn't know, the things you don't know, right? So, and I guess this really was a pain point during COVID. So lots of our aging seniors, your eyes start to go. Well, they need this treatment at the Alberta Retina Consultants, and they have to go every 6 weeks. And I'm not sure all that it entails, but they have to go every 6 weeks or they lose their sight. Well, that was one of the gaps that happened during COVID, right? We have clients that every 6 weeks they pre-book with us and they go. And we found that price point, again, making sure that we were in sync with the Evergreens Foundation, with all the places where they use the LICO scale, right? So in order to make the application and all the documents they had to provide to make it in sync with everything, we kind of chose that. And we found, we lose money like crazy, but guess what? We are doing what we set out to do, what we promised you all that we would do. So you're welcome.
Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
Through the mayor to Dawn, also thank you for all you guys do. I know how much work involved. Mine is also on the NET program. So there is qualifications. You have to be over 65, correct? And do you have to be an Edson resident, or you pick up Edson and Yellowhead County? So this applies only to Edson residents?
Correct.
Okay, and then you said cost. Can you explain to us how that's covered? Like you said, it's costing money, so if a senior can't afford it, how is your group subsidizing it is what I'm looking for.
Oh, sure. Okay, so I had written a grant and was successful in saying that you know, and Edson residents need it to get to these specialized doctor's appointments and their specialists and the cross cancer and all these sorts of things. And I said that we could do the service. So our true cost to transport from Edson to Edmonton is low hanging fruit. Okay, it's just over or just under $2,200. So if you're in what I consider tier 1, you would pay $150. So you can see that difference right there, right? Of, you know, $2,000. Healthy Aging Alberta gave us X amount of dollars to offset that cost. Because here's a good problem it's a good problem, bad problem, depending on how you look at it. Because we are servicing so many clients and we make so many trips to Edmonton, we're going through that pot of money that we're allotted each year. So I'm going to have to try to find the difference in money, or perhaps only be able to take in 4 trips a month or 3 trips a month. Do you see what I mean? And that to me I find very, very challenging and difficult, and I don't want to do it, which is why I'll just continue to pound the pavement and write grants and do whatever I have to do, because I feel to some degree, or almost, this is going to sound harsh, but it's kind of like, well, I don't want to decide whose appointment is more important than the next person, you know? So there's the challenge, but therein lies the difference. It costs over 2,000, you know. Yeah. You're welcome.
Council, any further questions for Ms. Mitchell in her presentation this evening? Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
Through the chair to Ms. Mitchell. I know we talked before about the charters here and that. I still getting inquiries from people about our charters and that, eh? I keep telling them to phone you guys and stuff like that, but they don't say anything on our website about it or whatever and that. And I know there is businesses out there that would like to do the charter because we don't charge as much as some of the other charters around town, and that's what they're looking for in this day and age and stuff like that. And I think if we can ever get it out there that, you know, we do charters, I think, you know, that'll bring our revenue stream back up too, and that, and especially through around town and everything like that. So are we gonna do any kind of advertising on that at all, or?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Bevan. Thank you for the question. So we do have a rack card similar to the ones that I showed you up there. I just didn't include it with this one. So they're on all our buses, and we did actually just look into a mass mail out. And that's regarding advertising and charters. It should be on our website. If it's not, that shouldn't have happened. Our rate is $110 per hour with a 3-hour minimum. And I will definitely look into why it wouldn't be on our website. It should be.
Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
I notice that sometimes on our website, things disappear. Like I was just on it here about a day ago. Our trivia night popped up as we're going on the 25th of October again. And people were commenting on it that, well, didn't you guys move it? What happened? But it showed up again that we're still going on April the 25th or so. I'm not sure what's going on with the social media, but I think that is what's happening sometimes.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Bevan. Thank you for pointing that out. That must be an issue on the back end, and I will be sure to look into that the minute I leave here.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Any further questions, comments? So I had the pleasure of attending your AGM here a couple weeks ago, and I'll just reiterate some of the comments I made there. Obviously, very happy to see the increase in ridership, and I think when you talk about the NET program, such a critical, important program in our community for those that are aging. That was, I know, a desire for council for a long time to make sure that there is a connection to those specialists in Edmonton for vulnerable populations and people that may not have family to drive them to Edmonton or no means to get to Edmonton. So incredibly important, but incredible cost as well. And so the town of Edson, I don't know if you recall exactly how much our grant has increased over the last 3 years. If you have that number available or not, I can't recall off the top of my head. But but there's only so much the town of Edson can afford as well. So my question to you, Ms. Mitchell, is what opportunities are you looking at as an organization to increase revenues? Obviously, you got to keep it affordable for people to use the service. Increasing ridership cost by $1 a trip is not going to make up the hole that gap in revenue versus expense. So, what are you looking at for the long term? Obviously, grants are easy to come by for capital, as you mentioned, not so much for operational. And is there going to be further budget asks from the town of Edson come 2026?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's extremely challenging. I will tell you that I will continue to write grants. I will continue to pound the pavement. I agree with you about the grants. I come here every year and I look you guys in the eye and say, I'm hustling. I promise you there is no stone left unturned. The service that we provide, the clients that we serve, they deserve it. And so tirelessly, we will beat the band. As for, and the increased funding from the town of Edson, can't thank you enough. I mean, it is amazing. It is what allows us to, have that second full-time driver, which is so needed because now you see 2 of our buses, sometimes 3, bopping around the streets and heading out to Edmonton. So thank you very, very much. As for an increased ask, I would hate to speak on behalf of the board. I can tell you that I promise you we will do our very best to not be coming back. I promise.
Thanks for that, Ms. Mitchell. I guess my further question to that is, as you look at upgrading your fleets, I've had the pleasure of being on some of those buses, and they're not an Escalade. Let's just say that. When you're looking at upgrading your fleet, do you anticipate that some of your operating expenses may decrease through fuel efficiency or maintenance costs, or are you looking at changing your fleet for maybe something smaller for those trips to Edmonton where you're only taking 1 or 2 people at a time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad that you asked that. Yes, we spend a lot of time in the repair shop. Sometimes, you just feel like, goodness sakes, right? That said, with the new buses, yes, that will decrease. I do feel that the fuel costs will decrease because part of, right sizing, really. We've ordered 2 diesel buses. That was made a conscious decision because diesel lasts longer than gas, and I'm told, I don't really know, but I'm told this, and the resale is better, right? So then we looked at that. We looked at longevity versus repairs. So those have been ordered. We have the P5 van. We have a replacement for that one coming soon. The Rural Transit Solutions Grant Fund, and hopefully that comes through and we'll get another P5. We would also like to get 2 P3s, they're called. And those are minivans that are taller. And again, it speaks to your right sizing. It speaks to not needing to move the big buses around town, right? They just cost more. They cost more when they break. All those sorts of things. We'll save those for charters and those sorts of things. I also think that taking the P3s and the P5, which we have now, which is what we take to the city and to Devon and Spruce Grove and that for appointments, Hinton, it does save on gas. It is definitely more cost effective.
And my final question is, so with those trips to Edmonton, those trips are just 2 appointments. You don't stop at Costco or anything like that. It's just from point A to point B to back home, right? For those medical appointments, there's no shopping or anything like that, correct?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I'm really glad you brought that up because the clients know that we pick them up at their door. So our door-through-door service is extremely important to us, and it is what separates us from all others. Again, because we deal with vulnerable individuals, we need to make sure that they are carefully handled from their door. are secured properly onto the vehicle. And then when they get to their destination, we make sure that they get into the building safe. So in the NET program, that door-through-door service doesn't change. We pick the client and their support person up at their residence. We take them straight to, unless they need a body break, of course, but we go straight to their appointment. We wait for them. When they get out of their appointment, we take them straight back home and ensure that they get safely back in their door. There is no stopping to shop. There is no stopping for lunch. There is no, it's truly just a trip for them. And they're not feeling well. Let's truthfully, so.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And once again, thank you to your organization for all you do. As Councillor Taylor pointed out, if the municipality was doing this service, it would cost us probably 3-4 times as much. So thank you very much. And thank you for always providing updates to us annually. Really important to have that information.
You're welcome.
more than-
Thank you very much for having me.
More than welcome to stay if you like, or we certainly understand if you'd like to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Just want to turn off your microphone there for me, please. Thank you. Moving on to bylaws, we have election bylaw, sign bylaw number 2319, presenting tonight, Miss Adrienne Tate, our returning officer.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for allowing me back. Tonight we bring before you the draft election sign bylaw for your consideration. Just a little bit of background. During the review of the elections bylaw in November, the committee requested or suggested the creation of a standalone election sign bylaw. We first brought this back to committee on February 11th. At that time, the committee provided various feedback, including permitted zones, increased flexibility in sign sizes, and fines. Administration took that into consideration and brought back to committee again on March 11th, where we received additional feedback requesting the map reflect prohibited areas and some simplified fine structure. We have now brought the draft bylaw back for your consideration. As per committee direction, we have reduced the number of prohibited areas and listed them within the bylaw. The bylaw now includes municipally owned lands and facilities where the signs would be prohibited. These are the airport, the Civic Center, Edson Fire Department, Edson Glenwood Cemetery, Galloway Station Museum and Travel Center, Griffiths Park, Public Works, and RCMP Centennial Park. For the Galloway Station Museum and Travel Center and RCMP Centennial Park, the way the land titles read, that's why we've had them listed separately so that it encompasses both. With regards to the fines, we've also simplified the fine structure. It now states that if a sign is re-erected, this is after a bylaw has gone, removed a sign. If the sign is re-elected, that's when the fine structure would kick in. Second offenses or subsequent offenses are $200 upon summary conviction. It's a minimum penalty of $200. If there is a provision in there that if there are additional offenses, that we would double that fine amount. And that is in response to, again, a simplified fine structure and concerns that there was inconsistent enforcement previously. So tonight we are recommending that council give all 3 readings to the bylaw. And in case council was wondering or wanted to know why, here's some signs as to why we originally got where we are. One of them is from a friend of ours in Peace River, and you can clearly see that the sight lines of the stop sign are not great. But thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Tate, for all your hard work on this. We've had a lot of back and forth and revision after revision, so I really appreciate the effort that's gone into this. Council, do you have any questions before I start taking motions? Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to Ms. Tate, I echo Mayor Zahara's words. We're all very passionate about election signs, so thank you for your work on this over the last few months and going draft after draft. I like the final the final changes that have been made. I think the prohibited area works well. I think the fines also are appropriate. Just a couple of maybe comments. In terms of revisiting this bylaw, I think it's every 4 years, every 3 years in it. I would perhaps suggest that we review it maybe early into 2026. We shortly after the next election, certainly long before the next provincial election. So if there are any changes that need to be made, it's kind of fresh in everyone's minds instead of getting through 3 elections and then reviewing it, kind of thing. That would be certainly just my recommendation. Obviously, the rest of council can chime in there. And will this information be sent to the current federal election candidates if passed tonight? And from what I've seen, I don't see any current signs that would be in contradiction to this bylaw, but I don't know if you've heard of any that would potentially cause issues that are out there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Taylor, the mayor answered the question. Yes, it goes into effect May 1st. So. And there is one that would be in contradiction right now.
Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
Through the mayor to Adrian. Little confused on where it says the fines, because if you go on to B3 or 5.3, signs exceeding 0.6, then I go down to B4 and signs exceeding 2.9 meters, so I'm confused. Which sign are we allowed to use? Because if you go 5.3A, you get a $200 fine if your sign face is 0.6 meters, and then I go to number 4 if it exceeds 2.9 meters. So I don't know what is the sign, and they contradict one another.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chouinard, thank you for your question. I do believe you might be looking at the previous Schedule B, which is not proposed now. As well, 5.3
So this
is
is a
with
change
regards to residential private property, and 5.4 is in rural residential property, so those are two different.
So these are ones all got removed.
If you're speaking of the fine structures,
Yes, 'cause I just clicked on there and I was reading that at home and
Councillor Chenard, if you're talking about 5.3,
yes,
it says an election sign on residential private property with the exception of an election sign on a private fence and or gate and or on external walls of a private building will be, and it gives you the list.
right.
If you go to 5.4, it says an election sign on private R1R rural residential property.
Right, and
So that's a different zone. So if you are in a rural zone, you can have the larger sign.
okay, that's where I'm questioning if it's a campaign sign and you're saying rule or not. If you want to put a 2x4 sign or a 4x8, as long as it's not interfering with, like you say, signs and stuff, that's where I'm very confused. What's the difference? Like I understand what the bylaw says, but I disagree with it. Is I'll just.
And if you move on to 5.5, Councillor
Yes.
Chenard,
Yes.
an election sign on private non-residential property with the exception of an election sign on private fences can have a sign face area of 2.97.
Correct.
So you can have a large sign all over town, except you can't have it in somebody's front yard in a residential neighborhood.
But if the owner says, I don't mind it, and nobody cares, that's where I'm questioning it.
Well, the bylaw, according to if this council approves it, says no, you cannot.
Correct, and that's where I'm just questioning that.
So are you going to vote against this bylaw or are you in favor of this bylaw?
I'll be speaking against it.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
Through the mayor to Adrian. On our last election here, we could not put up signs at the recycle depot. And I see it's not listed here, so it's a possibility we can put them out there. I know it's close to the provincial building just across the road and everything else. But I remember when people were putting signs up there, they were all collected and turned in. And they said, you guys can't put them here. It says it's town property. So I don't see anything on here. It says anything about the recycle depot at all. Is that still good to go or?
through the mayor to Councillor Bevan, thank you for the question. We intentionally left that off the list so that you could put signs there. There was conflicting recollections regarding what was permitted at the recycling center last time. So, and the direction from the committee, as I understood it, was that we wanted less prohibited areas. I'm happy to amend the bylaw if requested. Okay.
Council, any further questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I will take a motion, please. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
I move the council give first reading to bylaw number 2319.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
Thanks, through the mayor to all of council. I am appreciative of how administration has brought this forward, how it's presented. I think for a first signed bylaw that there's a good opportunity to provide a reasonable level of showing the electorates who is running in an election, along with also not making the town look like a disaster like you had in those photos. So, and also making sure we're not blocking signage that is necessary for transportation. So I'm pleased with the way it's worded, and I'm glad that there are some penalties associated for those that don't abide by it. And we will, I guess, use this going forward. And if there's amendments that need to be made, then they'll be made at that time. So I like how it's done. Thank you.
Councillor Chenard, go ahead with your opposition.
Actually, I disagree with the one thing, but I do agree that we need this because we've been involved in elections and lots of signs, and with the examples, I believe there's chaos. So even though I disagree with certain areas, I will agree that we need something in place so it can be ran correctly. So I only partly disagree.
Appreciate that, Councillor Chenard. Any other comments or questions? All right, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion, please, for second reading? Go ahead, Councillor
I'll
Chenard.
make the second reading.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. And can I get placement for third, please? Councillor Chachka.
I move that bylaw number 2319 be placed for third reading.
That's non-debatable. All those in favor? Motion carried. And motion for third reading, please. Go ahead, Councillor Bevitt.
I'll make a motion that council give third reading to bylaw number 2319.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Bevitt. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Just one further comment. I'll be watching for Councillor Chenard's signs and bringing out a tape measure because I'm sure it'll be right across the street from my house. So all those in favor, that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you once again for your work on this, Ms. Tate. All right, the fun part of the evening, our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Denise McDonald, on the 2025 Spring Budget Revisions. Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is the 2025 Spring Budget Adjustments. Just to recap our, I've got two things going on here. This slide revisits the budget approved on November 13th, 2024. It included operating revenues of $26,731,348 with operating expenditures of $40,030,301. That calculated a municipal tax levy amount of $13,486,132. With that, we also put forward a capital budget of $42,086,075, for which council approved. Activities to date include the administration, although administration is committed to budget process improvements for the 2025 budget. This will set the standard for future budgets. What is presented tonight is a compilation of all the variables necessary to create the mill rate bylaw. The capital carry forward projects were presented March 4th for council approval. All other council approvals made to date have been collected. Compass Assessment presented the 2024 assessment to be used for the 25 tax year. All requisitions have been received. The Evergreens Foundation, provincial school requisitions, as well as the provincial requisition for designated industrial properties. This provides all the variables for which administration can now calculate the mill rate bylaw to be presented May 20th, May 6th. Let's look at the numbers. So hopefully the numbers are large enough that you can see them clearly. This worksheet shows the 2024 budget compared to the original budget for 2025. This was approved November of 24. The municipal tax dollar increase at that time was $124,925. Operating carry forwards were approved March 4th and included storm sewer condition assessment, Warehouser trail connection, 6th Avenue design and construction specs and design standards, housing strategy and Wilmore Park Ridgeview rehab for a total of $528,353 from reserves. There was only one council motion that affected operations to date, which was the medical clinic for a total of $103,275. I will go through the variances of the spring adjustments, and then at that time, administration will be supporting increases by draws from reserves and a reduction in the municipal levy. This needs further investigation by administration, and certainly administration is interested in council's input to evaluate bringing back a mill rate that supports an inflationary increase to the municipal dollars levied. It is important to ensure a balance between reducing the municipal tax requirement because of the tax impact of requisitions to taxpayers. However, it's not sustainable in the long run. So with that, I'd like to go through the last column that indicates variances. So the first line item is really a reduction in the municipal requisition as a placeholder. In most situations of any changes, administration can review, let me better explain that. We've put a placeholder of a reduction of $309,070. And that is due to most of the situations where administration could make changes to reduce that rate. I'm indicating that it's a placeholder because it needs further review. What is important to understand is how the whole tax impact affects the taxpayer so that we can come back to council with a moderate increase to the impact to the taxpayer. The second line item is the large increase that is because of our requisitions. So you can see that we have $456,407 increase for requisitions alone. 78% of that is due to education. The remainder is the Evergreens Foundation, as well as a small increase to the DIP properties, which of course doesn't go to all the assessment, just to the DIP industrial properties. The increase for schools by the province is a 9% increase. The requisition for Evergreens is a 12.7% increase. Therefore, when we take the time to calculate how this impacts the taxpayer, it would be important to ensure that it's not a large enough tax increase that affects them so negatively. So we need this extra time to do that calculation to bring back something that is tolerable for the taxpayer, but at some point increases our municipal levy amount. The third line on there, the variance of $105,189 is a reduction, and that's due to the recycling EPR, as well as we allocated $17,000 from user fees under finance over to interest earned. So it's on one line it's a decrease, on one line it's an increase in the revenue. The $75,000 decrease is a net reduction due to next net reduction in the draw from reserves for the intern grant, which of 30K thousand that we did not receive, but we did receive the Canada Export Grant. The 103,275 is reduced due to the medical clinic. The 7,000 is a reduction in the Yellowhead County cost sharing allocation. And so that difference is due to when we sent the notice to the county in the fall, approximately September, we did a considerable amount of improvements to when we allocated their actuals for December 31st. We used the same template to reevaluate what we were going to charge them for 2025, and we made some slight adjustments. One was a capital allocation that we shouldn't have included in September, and we also removed any draws from reserves and contributions to reserves so that it doesn't impact our allocation to reserves is not being charged to the county, and any draws from reserves doesn't reduce what they pay us. So there's a number of small changes throughout the allocations that will impact our 25 budget allocation to the county. We reduced grant as well as supporting expenses in contracted services for fire for 100,000. We reduced fire grant that the next line was 40,000. We reduced the grant that did not include supporting expenses. And so that one in particular is we had revenue of 40,000, but we didn't have the supporting expense for 40,000. So it affected our bottom line. So we've removed that at this time. If the fire department is successful in grants, we'll bring it back under a budget allocation, which we are working on a procedure in the future to do that internally, that it doesn't have to go to council directly. Overall, you can see that we are supporting $694,000 from reserves to support the changes. Part of that is the spring adjustments that were, part of that is the carry forward from 24 into 25 that was not completed. So the spring adjustments is truly an increase of $166,422 draw from reserves, more than we had anticipated. When we look at the expense side, you can see that salaries and wages and benefits have increased slightly for a number of areas. We did move the utility clerk position from finance to the self-serving department so that we can have a better allocation of those expenses to evaluate our cost of services to determine what our revenues should be to support those areas. So we're constantly tweaking our line items. When we look at contracted services, that's the largest change for spring adjustments. It includes $5,000 for public engagement for council orientation. RCMP had a considerable reduction of $353,000, and that's due to the true up. So the RCMP contract, they bill us an estimate for 3 quarters, and then the first quarter in 2025 is a true up for their actual cost for their employment. And so we trued that up and have a cost savings, but we also reduced that true up by 2% to establish a retro pay for future, which we hadn't included in the budget in November of 24. 22,500 is the Canadian Export Grant expenditures. 27.5 we've increased building maintenance to support work required on our buildings and facilities. 16,500 for IT improvements required. We've removed 55,000 for community needs assessment. We've included an increase of 26.5 for 26,500 for insurance. And we've included 22,500 for finance software optimization. We've also decreased the line item by $100,000 for fire expenditures without grant support. The next line item is the materials and goods, and it has a few small increases in various departments. We did establish the Corporate Services Department as their own costing center under general government, and we increased costs to support that department of $7,500. The next line item is the Youth Council Bursary Program, which I believe that I spoke to council in the past, and so there's just an adjustment there of we expect payout for that program to be $10,500, and we will draw the money from reserves, and annually we'll contribute $6,000 to reserves. So there was an adjustment of the line items to better report what exactly is happening there. Then the next item again is the education requisition. So you can see the revenue that we would draw from the taxpayer to support the requisition under the expense side. Accretion expense, when we proposed it in November, we were planning to fund it, and a reevaluation of it is that we feel it's similar to amortization and that we would not fund the accretion expense. Instead, we would look for reserves to support those funding those areas, whether it's amortization and or accretion, is really a tool, financial tool to understand the money we need to set aside in the future. Bad debt and incentive program, there's a change there of $47,526, and that is to reduce the write-down in the GPOT expenses. So the province had in the past only funded that they don't pay taxes, they pay a grant in place of taxes, and so they reduced what we sent them by 50%, and they're proposing to increase that to 75% for 25 and 75% for 25 and 100% for 26. Overall, the total change is $428,906. And would there be questions at this time, or should I move on to capital?
All right, any questions for operating for Ms. McDonald before we continue on? Can you just jog our memory here? What is accretion expense?
Would it be best to call Tyler up?
Mr. Goebel, you want to come on up? I know it was explained last time, but I am a little fuzzy on what that is again.
Yep, yes, thank you for coming up.
Thank you for the question. So yeah, accretion expense, it is something new that started in 2023 with a new accounting standard with the asset retirement obligation. So what this expense is intended to do is over a period of time. So what an asset retirement obligation would be is if we have to tear down a building and there's asbestos that we have to abate, or there's like legal requirements for us to remove that. The goal of the asset retirement obligation is to record a liability on your books so that when the time comes to retire that asset, whether it's 5 years, 20 years, that you'll have the funds set aside for it. So what happens with the accretion expense is you might start with a liability of $1 million, and over 20 years, we might say that liability should be $3 million. So every year you take a little bit of expense and you build that liability over time. Yeah, so it's more of just like an accounting provision than it is an actual cash cost to the town.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I do appreciate that. You mentioned in your presentation there, Ms. McDonald, about the school requisition going up $456,000, which accounts to about 9% for the town of Edson. Looking at the charts provided by the provincial governments, that number fluctuates from municipality to municipality, somewhere upward of 20-25%. At a recent Alberta Munis Leaders Caucus, Minister McIver spoke about this. Even with the increase, they're only going to be funding about 28% of the education budget through property taxes. However, we're the ones that get blamed for the increase in taxation, even though all that money goes to the provincial government. So I do appreciate you looking at this holistically, because whether or not it's us or the province increasing property taxes, it has a real big impact on our residents. So it's unfortunate that we're seeing that increase at probably the most inopportune time. But certainly we also need to fund our education. So I understand that. I do know that there is a movement encouraging the provincial government to get out of municipal taxation and tax education through their own means without it being landed on municipal property tax bills. So thank you for that. If we have no further questions or comments, you can move on to capital.
Thank you for the floor again, Mr. Mayor and Council. If I can just elaborate on those school requisitions, we do know that 2026, the increase will be 14%, and the increase for 27 will be 4%, and then should level out to 2% in the following years. However, it does impact us substantially in that it makes it difficult for the municipality to increase their own costs to cover the services that we provide here. So to capital. So on our capital, the capital budget approved November 13th was $42,086,075. Council approved carry forwards from 24 into 25 of $1,627,465. That's column 2. And we had other motions, including the deferral of sanitary B1 A6 to 2026. Spring adjustments include $600,000 for fluoride plan treatment, removing $600,000 for the fluoride plan / water treatment degas project, removing $100,000 for the wastewater treatment design as the province has given us an extension on this work to design in 2027 for $500,000 and construction in 2029 for $3.5 million. We added this desludging at the wastewater treatment plant for $600,000, added $35,000 for 54th Street, 2nd Avenue design. The spring adjustments to the capital worksheet has a $5,000 increase for a total of $43,708,840 for our capital projects in 2025. Our next steps. Administration will take council's input and review the municipal tax requirements, requisition increases, review the revenue as a whole, including additional draws on reserves, and evaluate the tax impact on the taxpayer. Following that analysis, we will propose a reasonable municipal mill rate, which will be presented at the May 6th regular council meeting for consideration. While this is not ideal, administration will require an additional motion for any changes to the budget due to administrative review. This will not be a requirement in future years, but is necessary this year as the process this year and the complexity of the transition from the transition to a better budget process for the future. So we're trying to squish all these different processes together, but in the future you wouldn't see this next step when we bring forward the spring adjustments. It will be the amount we would use for the mill rate. At the November 13, 2024 council meeting, administration committed to returning a 5-year capital plan along with spring adjustments. While the plan requires further refinement, it does illustrate the capital infrastructure requirement expected in the next 5 years and the infrastructure deficit that results. This enhanced planning tool provides a forecast of the proposed capital projects over the next 5 years and will be incorporated into the development of the 26 budget and future budgets. Notably, the plan clearly identifies the need to research grants, increase revenues, and at the same time contribute to capital reserves for capital replacement. However, it does provide valuable insight which council needs to consider in its decision-making processes. So on the screen, you will see we've broken it into the main categories: in engineering structures, buildings, vehicles, machinery and equipment, land improvements. And then we've identified funding sources that are readily available. So you can see the grants that we are using, the revenue that we're using on the YCE multiplex, the LGFF major grants, CCBF, which used to be called the federal gas tax, Alberta Municipal Wastewater Program grant that we will be utilizing in 2026. Projects that are grant dependent, we've included those grant funds, and reserves for fleet, and then reserves as a whole, forecasting approximately $2 million to be utilized in our grant programs. And we estimate the whole available, estimated available funds available to use on those projects is $43.4 million in 26, 18.4 in 27, with the big item being the YCE multiplex and it dropping down to 7.6 in the subsequent year. The infrastructure deficit is quite large at this point. For 2026, it's 8.4 million, 2027, 10.5 million. When we, our next steps is that administration recommend that council approve the revised 2025 operating budget with a total operating revenues of $27,469,625 and a total operating expenditures of $40,646,687, and that excludes the amortization, resulting in a municipal tax levy requirement of $13,177,062 and the 2025 capital budget with a total capital revenue of $43,708,540 to support an equivalent expenditure. The second recommendation is administration recommends council approve the in principle the 5-year capital improvement plan as presented. And I'll pass the floor back to Mayor and Council for questions.
Thank you, CFO McDonald, for your in-depth presentation. Council, do you have any questions before we take the motions from the floor? All right, well, I will take a motion from the floor then. Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
Through the mayor, should I read it all out?
If you like, or you'll make the motion as presented.
I'll make the motion as presented by Ms. McDonald.
Thanks for that. Don't need to extend our meeting another 10 minutes. Council, any debate on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. And can I get a motion, please, on the 5-year capital plan? Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
The council approve the 5-year capital plan as presented.
In principle.
In principle, yes.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Just to comment, we have a huge infrastructure deficit right across this country. So the numbers that you see before you will be very similar in many municipalities across this country. And this is one of the reasons why Alberta Municipalities and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is lobbying the federal and provincial governments for more money to deal with critical infrastructure, in particular wastewater and water systems. I don't know, I'm sure Mr. Kitlitz can talk to how many years the grants are fully subscribed in these areas very, very quickly. So getting those grants are very, very difficult. And there's just not enough money to go around, and communities are aging. Cost of infrastructure is going up. We see that. Doing a block of infrastructure work used to be $1 million in this community. Now it's $2 million. So we do need some changes into how infrastructure is funded in this country. Municipalities only receive 10 cents for every dollar of tax revenue collected by taxpayers in Canada. So despite owning majority of the infrastructure. So no doubt this will be a conversation piece at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which is coming up next month. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some better success there. With that, Council, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald, as well as your colleague, for your hard work and dedication. Mr. Gold, really, really appreciate that. Ms. McDonald, now you're going to be presenting on the 2026 budget planning process. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you is the 2026 budget process. This is the budget cycle we are utilizing for the 2026 process. Budget and public engagement would commence April to August. The internal budget input for managers would start February 1st to August 3rd. Managers would create departmental budgets and would be reviewed by general managers. Managers then present those budgets to the SLT team with general manager support. That would happen in the month of August. Senior leadership will review those presentations and in the month of September, and we would look to council to have a council budget workshop September 16th. Council orientation, nomination day would be September 22nd, as well as election day, October 20th. And council orientation would include a budget review. Administration would be presenting operating and capital budgets in November 18th, 2025, with a fallback date of December 2nd, if required. That completes the cycle. I'd like to pass the floor to CAO Christine Beveridge to discuss the public satisfaction survey and the budget engagement for 2026.
Go ahead, CAO Beveridge.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to be able to provide a little bit of insight as far as what we've ventured into as far as a plan for our 2026 budget engagement. And you'll note we're including a component of a public satisfaction survey as well. With local government communications becoming more challenging and more crucial than ever, we feel the need to utilize more tools to navigate these uncertain times. Effective communication and engagement are our strongest defenses with these challenges. Communications and engagement are amongst the top tools for rebuilding community trust. The way we communicate and engage is key to strengthening our relationship as a whole with our community. Our communications team are in tune with the public's perceptions, reactions, needs, and concerns, and they guide the organization effectively in managing this relationship. As articulated within the public participation policy, the mandate is, this policy was developed to achieve deliverables such as allowing residents to have a voice in the decision-making process and to give our council more information and make more informed decisions. The public participation policy guides administration and council on appropriate times to formally engage the public and to make the process of public engagement more transparent. So what will be different this year? Utilizing a third party, Catalyst Communications, to assist administration with the process. Public satisfaction and budget survey, a combined survey, open house sessions, 2, and 3 focus group sessions. That would include businesses, nonprofit leaders, as well as youth council. The public satisfaction survey is a combined survey with the budget survey for a few reasons. First and most importantly is the way we structure budget engagement ties back to service delivery so that residents can see the whole picture as they participate in the engagement. The other key reason is simply to avoid survey fatigue. The Public Satisfaction Survey assesses residents' opinions on municipal services and overall governance, focusing on service quality and community engagement. Whereas the Budget Survey simply focuses on financial priorities and spending decisions, focusing on how municipal funds should be allocated. Both are essential for informed governance, but serve different purposes. We believe this is the time and the right mix of engagement. Enhanced engagement opportunities leading to more data for council and administration to ultimately serve our residents and our community more effectively and efficiently. I'd like to briefly share a little bit of feedback of other communities that have utilized this process. So I'm reading verbatim. Council and administration alike gain a deeper understanding of residents' perspectives, experiences, and opinions as a baseline of which they can build and adjust where necessary. Council is provided with a deeper understanding of resident opinion going into budget deliberations, rather than an isolated snapshot, just about, such as social media. Public opinion can be effectively used in driving organizational direction and specific decisions. In one community last year, council specifically looked at service satisfaction levels to drive the development of key priorities for the new budget term. Another council used the results as a key driver in reprioritizing specific items within their strategic plan. Over time, the impacts and changes in service delivery can be tracked through public opinion. As well, service satisfaction levels can be measured. The process ultimately helps residents feel more involved in the local government issues and decisions, helping with long-term goal of building the relationship between the organization and the community. So thank you. We're open to any questions you may have with regards to the budget plan as well as the engagement plan that we have set forward.
Thank you, CO Beveridge, for that. Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you are the recommendation, 3 recommendations that council is recommending that council accept the 2026 operating and capital budget plan and the timelines as presented. Administration recommends that council schedule a budget meeting workshop on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025, commencing at 4:30 p.m. held at the Edson Civic Center. And administration recommends that council cancel the regular council meeting on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Council, any questions for administration? All right, I will take a motion from the floor then. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
That council accept the 2026 operating and capital budget plan timelines as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any debate on this motion? I'll just comment that I think it's critically important that the budget process starts prior to the election. After the election, it is like drinking from a fire hose if you're a new member from council. So to have that base work done, I think is critically important. So I do appreciate the timelines that are presented here and that there will be some consultation and feedback provided by the community before that time. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get the second motion, please? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
I move that council schedule a budget meeting on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. held at the Edson Civic Center.
Thank you, Councillor Chachka. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. And can I get the third motion, please? Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
I move that council cancels the regular council meeting Tuesday, September 16, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Council committee reports. We are going to go back to April the 2nd and queue up if you'd like to go first. Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
Thank you. On April 8th, I, as the Attraction and Retention Committee Chair, I presented, along with another member of our committee, to the Yellowhead County Council on a housing proposal. And also on April 8th, I attended the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
On April 7th, I attended the Youth Council meeting with Councillor Chenard. Just a quick update. Of course, the youth have been working very hard at providing a dinner for the vulnerable and unhoused population. That dinner lunch is happening this Friday. And I got to give the students credit, the council credit. They created the budget. They found the sponsors. They sourced the food. They found the location. They did all the legwork. Councilor Patricia and I just showed up every meeting going, great work, everybody. That's all, that's honestly, the youth did absolutely phenomenal. And I know that some town staff, including our enforcement officers, are also going to be volunteering this Friday as well to be on hand. So looking forward to that. As well, the Youth Council have organized a 50-50 for the trade show to raise money for the Edson Food Bank. So look out for them there. April 8th, I attended Committee of the Whole meeting, and April 15th, that's today, I attended a homelessness task force meeting where we're still working towards building a concrete plan for some transitional housing. And that is my report.
Councillor Chenard.
April 7th, I attended Evergreens Foundation meeting, and I forwarded the meeting up to council, and April 8th, Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Councillor Bevan.
Committee of the Whole, April 8th. The 10th, we had a synergy meeting here. Our guest presentator was Pivotal Resources here. They are now fully operational. They've got about 10,000 barrels stored on site at times. They have 25 trucks coming in. They got 10 trucks going out with loaded, and the rest of it is being loaded on rail cars for propane and that. They're looking at expanding into North Dakota and that. They're not worried about the tariffs. They're a different kind of an organization. It's not going to affect them, so they're going full bore and stuff like that. What else was there here? West Central Airshed has been in place since 1995. They'll be hosting a 30th anniversary celebration on Wednesday, May 28th, 25. Invitations will be sent out to everybody if they want to go or the town and that. Athabasca Watershed is a registered nonprofit organization formed in 2009. They work with academy, industry, environmental groups, and they're also going strong too on that. Pado, they had a really busy winter, repairing bridges and everything else, and that for about $350,000. They got 4 drilling rigs going right now, and they're looking at water loading on the gas plant, and there's sour decommissioning the Edson gas plant and that. Secure Energy is now called Secure Waste Infrastructure Corporation and focused in the Yellowhead area on waste management. They will look and be double size. Folks will be including recycling metals and specialty chemicals. And that is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan, for that. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Alberta Munis meeting virtually on April 2nd. Had the committee meeting on the 8th of April. And last night I attended the Forest Resources Advisory Committee meeting at the Galloway. One very exciting topic. Tree planters are arriving in the region November or May 5th to 10th, and they will attempt to be planting 15 million trees this time. Thank you.
How many of them are coming?
A few.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. For my report, Committee of the Whole on the 8th and the ARC Subcommittee on the 9th, where we got together at the hospital to basically set up for the trade show in Winnipeg that's coming up. So we have 4 people from Edson going, along with one local physician who's attending the conference itself, but she's going to try to make time for the booth as much as possible. I can tell council that we are going to be very well represented at this conference in Winnipeg. Some fantastic brochures were created by Sherry at the museum with our Choose Edson websites. We'll be doing some marketing in Winnipeg. And really great support from our local business community on some prizes to give away. The town of Edson contributed some swag, Yellow County as well. Yellow County actually looked after shipping everything out to Winnipeg. So really good collaboration. I'd like to thank our EDO, Morgan Roberts, for all her work on our website, as well as Miss Tate for her assistance in getting things organized as well. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to make some good connections. And when I say we, I'm not going, but the members that are participating. And, you know, hearing from those that are at this conference is what is it that attracts them to a community? What's it going to take to bring them to our community and having those conversations? So this is the biggest rural physicians conference in Canada. And I look forward to seeing what the results of that are. And I can also tell you that the ARC subcommittee is planning on doing some advertising as well out there with the medical professionals, and it's quite expensive, but we are going to do everything we can to make Edson and Yellow County attractive to those that might be looking for work here in Canada in terms of medical recruitment. And that is my report. We have one information item, and that would be I-1 regarding Bill 50. So this was a late add-on to the agenda. Council, you have the letter in front of you there. Just to give you an overview, Bill 50 was introduced into the legislature, I think, a week or two ago. Some very significant concerns with Bill 50. There are some good things that are in the legislation in terms of ensuring that municipalities only have one CAO, unlike what we saw in Southern Alberta where they had 3 and there was a huge investigation and people were removed from office. You know, I think we all around this table agree that the code of conduct as it has been set out for councils has not been very effective. However, removing that without a replacement in place, I think, is problematic. So that's outlined in the letter as well. I do know that the minister has spoken about potentially putting in, I guess, a municipal ombudsman or ethics person that would oversee codes of conduct, which I actually really support from a provincial level. But to do that, to remove the code of conduct without having that in place, I think is problematic. The biggest concern is the proposed requirement for chief administrative officers report actions taken under natural person powers. As referenced in Bill 50, would result in an overwhelming volume of reporting and updates to council, not practical nor feasible, especially during circumstances such as long weekends. The MJA is quite clear that council has one employee, that there is a separation of duties between governance and operations. And I believe that this legislation is just clouding those waters and putting into place rules because of a select few problematic municipalities out there. We have processes in place here in our organization where administration reports to us regularly, where council can make requests for information, and that information is given as quickly as possible. If it is required for council to make those decisions. If there are problem municipalities out there, those municipalities need to be dealt with. And if councils are not getting information from their CAOs, then they can terminate their CAOs if there's a problem. Some various concerns there. There's been many meetings about this with Alberta Munis and other stakeholders. So we are requesting, or at least in the letter, requesting that some of these things be looked at more closely before being implemented. So I don't know, CO Beveridge, if there's anything further you'd like to add. I know you've attended some webinars and that sort of thing. Go ahead, CO Beveridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you really touched on the key areas in which we feel that this is unnecessary. And I think that the reality is that the reaching into of council dealing with this, their CAO is a challenge, and having rules that even with regards to our meeting procedures, that's another aspect of the changes that are perceived. We don't know what those look like yet, but that's essentially some of those standard meeting procedures in which this council would prefer to operate. Every council can set their meeting rules. So I think you've eloquently stated probably the core piece of the major complications that we see with regards to this legislation. At this point in time, it is not only the one piece of legislation, it's several pieces of legislation that we are being challenged by as far as being able to, how we're going to be able to manage the additional workload with regards to not only Bill 50, but there's other legislation as far as the change out of the FOIP Act to the Access and Privacy Act, as well as the Provincial Priorities Act as well, that there's changes more recently with regards to that. So overall, I think that the advocacy by this council, and most certainly as well by administration towards our associations, and speaking towards having a more thoughtful approach, or maybe a pause on this legislation, would be requested, or maybe it's even just the pieces that are the challenge. There was no consultation with regards to this particular bill, and feeling that the massive amount of changes, and really the understanding of the rationale of why 72 hours, in the example of returning information to all of council in that timeline, is to be fair, it's not possible. In a lot of cases. In many cases, as you know, council, with regards to the administration that you have before you, we try our best to get information back. Sometimes just due to other emergent items that are on our plates, those will be pushed aside in order to respond, because I guess compliance is important. So that's how we see this. This is very a big challenge, the way it's written. We're still understanding what this legislation looks like. We, as Mayor Zahara noted, there was a meeting at noon, there was a meeting at 4, there's meetings tomorrow at 6, and then tomorrow. So we're trying to understand the changes and understand how we can have impact, and understand the intent behind them first, and be able to share and hopefully have input into these changes before they're put into place. Thank you.
So council, do you have any questions or comments on the letter that's presented before you here? Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to council, administration, and anybody in the gallery and beyond, I am supportive of the letter as it's written here. I echo Mayor Zahara's words about the challenges with code of conduct. Obviously, I think there's challenges within how it's done now, but there's got to be a better way. Just to eliminate it with nothing to replace it with is very problematic. Certainly a sense of irony as well, that certainly the provincial government always talks about wanting more autonomy from perhaps the federal government, and then looking at a massive overreach into municipal governance is certainly as a teacher, looking at the English teachers, this would be definitely fall into the category of irony. So those are my comments.
Any other further comments or questions on the letter? All right, so, and I'll just mention to council as well, Yellow County sent a similar letter this morning, and I imagine other municipalities will be doing the same as well. So with that, can I get a motion, please, to accept the letter for information? Go ahead, Councillor Chouinard.
I'll make the motion to accept the letter for information.
Oh, there we go. That council direct administration
There
to
you go.
submit the letter regarding Bill 50, response to Minister McCarver, as presented. Do you want to make that
One
motion?
back, that's what I meant to say.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Ms. Tate, for doing that. Council, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. And that's all for this evening, folks. So we will adjourn this meeting at 8:33. Thank you, everyone.